So good evening. My name is Councillor Diane Donaldson. I'll be chairing this Bromford and Hodge Ward Forum, which we're dedicating to the Bromford Regeneration and Flood Defence Scheme. Before we all start, can you all mute your microphones in order to improve the sound quality? And can you turn off your cameras with the exception of presenters, or unless you're the person speaking? Could everyone attending today's meeting put their mobile phones on silent and ensure that they are situated in a room or environment which is free from distractions or any unnecessary noise emanating from radios or TVs? I also confirm this is a public meeting and it will be subsequently live broadcast on the council's website. Do we have any apologies for this evening's meeting?
Nothing from me, Councillor.
Thank you. So that's no apologies. So this evening we'll be using the chat function in Microsoft Teams to communicate. Can you all confirm that you have the Microsoft chat function and you're able to use it?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Hello, Diane.
Hello, Mr. Ali. Can the other guests confirm that they have the use of the chat facility?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so we'll be using the chat facility. Once speakers have made their presentation and we launch into questions, if somebody would like to ask a question, just type speak into the chat and then we can determine the order of which to take the questions. So just to give everybody a fair chance of asking questions and making their point. Yeah. Okay, before we go any further, before we launch into the meeting, I would just like to reflect on the sad death of MP Sir David Amos after the brutal stabbing at his advice surgery, where he carried out his work helping his constituents. I would like us just to hold a minute's silence in reflection in respect of Sir David Amos MP.
I was speaking to Di this morning and I said, I genuinely feel sorry, you know what's happened. But they're saying that 3 MPs in the last 20 years have been killed.
Pat, can you mute your microphone, please? Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, so this evening we have various representatives from Birmingham City Council here with us. I'll just launch into the introductions. So you have myself, Councillor Diane Donaldson, and we have Councillor Majid Mahmood, both of us representing the Bromford and Hodge Ward. From Birmingham City Council, we have Darren Beasley. who will talk to us about the Jordan House part of the regeneration scheme. Also, we have Ron Williams from Birmingham City Council who will talk to us about the regeneration scheme. Mike Hinton, who will talk to us about the parks aspect, and Imke Goldby, who will talk to us about the flood regeneration scheme. I don't think I've missed anybody out, have I? No. Okay, so thank you. So first of all, because Darren needs to get off, we'll take Darren Beasley first of all, who will talk to us about the Jordan House regeneration scheme.
Hi all, my name's Darren Beasley. I work for Birmingham City Council on the capital investment team. So we do the refurbishment of high-rise tower blocks. So at the moment, I'm the lead officer running Jordan House refurbishment. Jordan House refurbishment will be an external works programme. So we're going to be renewing the roof covering, which will be replaced with a liquid pour cold roof. So that will increase the lifespan of the block by another 30 years. We're going to be renewing the windows. We're going to be enclosing the balconies. We're doing external wall insulation. So again, I know there's lots of worries about external wall insulation, but Birmingham City Council are one of the leads on this, and we've been doing it for a long time. So it's all A2 non-combustible fire-rated material. So it all goes through West Midlands Fire Service before we do anything. So all of the project has gone through West Midlands Fire Service. Also, we are doing internal work. So at the moment, we've started doing the internal works. The internal works include renewing of kitchens, bathrooms, full rewires, new heating. Also, we will be removing an internal wall that divides the balcony. So as we enclose the balcony, we'll remove a lightweight internal wall, which will make the living room much larger, and we'll be doing a full decoration in there as well and supplying floor materials. And also we shall be fitting for each tenant new front doors, which are the new fire-rated Q-mark front doors, and then the communal areas will have a new finish to the wall. So at the moment they have an old material on called Hubdine that gets sanded back, and we put a new smooth surface on called Tupre, which again is a fire-rated material, and then all new flooring, lighting will go in, and we are also renewing the bin chutes, hoppers, and also the smoke alarm systems throughout the block as well. So the total cost of that project for Jordan House is £7.4 million.
Thank you, Darren. And the other blocks, they will be at the same specification and the same cost?
Yeah, all the other blocks, whenever they get green lit, I don't have an idea when that will happen. Jordan House was picked primarily because when we looked at the Bromford blocks, it's one of the blocks that's had the least investment put into it over the last 30 years. So it was the one that we said we'd start on first, even though it looks like it's a little bit back to front because it's sort of in the middle. It's actually the one that's had the least investment. So the other blocks, I presume, will be done, but I don't have a time frame for that because that's above my level. I just make sure I get the projects delivered on time and on budget.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Mahmood who wishes to speak.
Yes, thank you, Darren, and thank you, Chair. I'm really pleased that we've had this extensive investment into Jordan House, more than 7 million, and I think we've got lots of residents across the city who are like basically quite envious of the fact that we've had this investment, and we're fighting, both myself and the chair are, to get similar investment in the other tower blocks that are in the Bromford. We did have a discussion about 2 years ago whether we would have to demolish them, but then we came to the conclusion that we could spend this amount of money to house this number of people. It would be very difficult to rehouse the residents we've got. And just want to thank you, Darren, for all the work yourself and other officers have been doing in engaging with the residents of Jordan House. Myself and the chair have passed you a number of inquiries where issues have arisen, and you've been very prompt in replying to them and meeting with residents on site. And I know the chair had a visit at the Jordan House. I couldn't make it on that specific day to have a look at the materials that have been used, and it's it's really good material, and especially in this current environment where materials are hard to get hold of. The material and the finish is absolutely brilliant for what's happening on the Bromford, and I'm sure residents are really pleased. We've had a lot of good feedback from residents around the fact that they're getting new kitchens and new bathrooms in their properties, and also the sprinkler system that's been installed as well. So it's a win-win for residents. So thank you again, and just pass on my appreciation and the residents to your colleagues. Thank you.
No problem. And also, sorry, I needed to put as well that there is on all of the tower blocks in the Bromford, and so the 4 in line are getting lift upgrades. Jordan House will be the last one just due to the works that we're doing, so as we can sequence it. So when the communal decks are starting, the lifts go in first so as they don't damage the new communal decks. So the lifts will be upgraded as well, so it'll be new carriages, new lift housing, a sump pump going in there. So the block will be a shining pin basically from start to finish. It will be the same sort of colour scheme. I don't know if you've looked at the we call them the boat blocks down bottom end of Nechells. It's on Dudderston Manor. There's 4 tower blocks in there, and so it's a white facade with grey flanking walls, light grey flanking walls again. So that they look very striking. We've done quite a few of these throughout the area now, and we are trying to pinpoint the one tower blocks with the least investment, so as we can give the most impact to the tenants that are within the properties.
Yeah, I've seen the tower blocks, and I've seen the photo generated images, and they look really striking. And yeah, I'm really pleased with the materials being used. I've seen the specification and from all the safety aspects, and we're fortunate that we've got the sprinklers installed, which do work and that they've proved effective. So yeah, we're very fortunate that these tower blocks will be renovated to a high specification, and as Majid said, we've had really good feedback from residents. Yeah, and with the new heating as well, we're removing the old storage rads and putting in an efficient oil-filled electric radiator. So it looks like a traditional radiator system, but it still runs off your electric. So they're all thermostat valves on there, so the tenants can turn them up and down to whatever type of heating they want. We were swapping the meters over as well as part of the rewire upgrade, so they won't be no longer on the old dual phase economy 7 heating. So that will be much more beneficial. So they'll see efficiencies in their actual heating bills, and also it will bring the cost of their heating down through having the efficiency of the external wall insulation on the outside, the new double glazed windows, the new doors. There'll be no drafts and nothing, so it will be a really nice and warm and pleasant, inviting place to be in. Excellent. And with the rise in the cost of gas that's coming through now, that'll be most welcome to the residents. Yeah. So thank you for that. I'll open it up to residents now if they'd like to ask any questions about the regeneration in the blocks. No, I'm not getting any questions. So Darren, well, thank you for that presentation, and thank you for all the hard work that you're doing, and your team. Passing our thanks.
Chair, just one final question.
Yes.
We've been in the news recently about the country. There's supposed to be an announcement today, but I think it's been delayed because of the horrific murder that took place in Southend-on-Sea with the MP, Sir Amos. I was going to ask about, there was an announcement today, from what I understand, about ending the use of gas boilers. So in terms of the heating that's going to be in the Jordan House and other blocks, is that going to be in line with what the plans are going forward in terms of the elements that are going to be used?
There's no gas in any of those tower blocks. It was removed in the early 80s, so there's actually no gas, so everyone is off electric only.
Thanks for that. That's a relief, because I was just worried that we might have to change the system again.
Oh no. Any new updates that come through from the government, we are looking into it. There's a green investment team that look into any type of funding there is, or any type of policy changes that feed down through to the capital team, so as we can then build that into a specification when we're looking at renewing tower block refurbishments.
And are we putting in, like, I'm not an expert in how tower blocks are sort of like insulated. Is there going to be insulation? So if we were to get an EPC on the tower block, I'm assuming we'll get a grade A.
You will never be able to get a grade A on any tower block, just due to the nature of the construction, but the average EPC on Jordan House is between an E and an F, and we're bringing them all up to C's, which is above the government guidelines.
Yeah, C is brilliant for a tower block, then that's...
Yeah,
it's
as close as you're going to get. To get an A, you have to have a thing called passive house, which it would be impossible to achieve on any sort of tower block or any low or any 3-story walk up. You wouldn't be able to achieve a passive house achievement to get an EPC rating of A on all of our tower blocks. It would be impossible to do.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks again, Darren. Cheers.
No problem.
Thank you, Darren. And Nosheen, one of our guests, has asked me to pass on thanks to you for the update. So yeah, unless anybody else would like to ask Darren a question, he's free to go. No, can't see any hands. So Darren, thank you once again, and thank you to your team for the excellent work.
Okay, thank you very much. Speak to you soon.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Right, so now we'll move on to the Bromford regeneration and the flood scheme. So could we take Ron next, please? Hi, Ron. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
Thank you for coming.
No problem. Right. I'll give you a bit of an update on where we are. Okay. I think last time we attended this meeting, we were reporting that we just started the work on the old Bailey and Stonycroft housing sites. Now that is progressing. Slight delays, largely due to the issue we had with Severn Trent Water and the Fatberg. Yeah. I'm sure everybody's aware of the issue that we had earlier in the year when Severn Trent discovered they had a 1,000 metre long fatberg in the system running down Chipperfield Road up towards the motorway. Yep, they took them several months to resolve it, and as a result, while that was going on, none of the other services were able to do any work along the Chipperfield Road, which has caused a delay with regards to the Stony and Bailey development. So originally we had hoped to have this scheme be built by June to August. We're now looking at maybe November next year. So the current time frame is we hope to get the first 9 units completed by March, end of March next year. Yeah. But we won't complete the full scheme until November next year. And that's assuming we don't get any more major problems such as materials failing to be delivered, which has become a bit of an issue over the last 6 months or so. But that's a nationwide issue in terms of logistics. As I'm sure you're all aware, just watching the news, generally there's a big logistical problem with everything from building materials to food. So we're watching that space. We're doing everything we can to basically minimize any disruption, but it is a risk. At this point in time, though, the contractors are telling us that they think they've got a handle on it and they are safely estimating that they won't slip beyond November next year. So by that point, we expect to have 53 new houses built on those two sites. 17 of those houses will have sprinkler systems, because in line with the post-Grenfell specifications, anything that is 3-story or above, will generally have sprinkler systems fitted, which also means that on the other developments we will be doing on this estate, where we are building apartment blocks which are 3 stories or higher, they will have sprinkler systems fitted. Okay. The other major change to report is that since we last met, there's been a change to the specifications of all the houses we are building, in line with the City Council's commitment to produce more eco-friendly properties to hit the zero carbon targets we are trying to achieve. Now, in practical terms, what that mainly means is that the properties will be better insulated. It also means that we will be fitting triple glazing on all the new houses. And the most fundamental one in terms of heating systems, that we will no longer be fitting gas boilers. There will now be air heat source, which is a newer form of technology. There's still quite a lot of work to be done in terms of which ones we actually put in terms of makes, because obviously we will be looking to try and get the most cost-effective form of air heat source for our customers. But at the moment, I'd say that the city is leading in terms of our commitment to bringing our housing stock up to a zero carbon status. I think government guidelines says we don't need to meet this till about, I think it's something like 2030, but we are aiming to adopt a policy whereby all our new build houses will be at zero carbon by, let's say, 2025. Moving forward, that's the City Council's commitment. I think Birmingham has decided that it's not good enough to simply wait. We declared a climate emergency, and in line with that, we are trying to accelerate our zero carbon processes, and the new build will be part of the leading edge of that programme. Okay. Diane, does that fit with what you've heard?
Sorry, I was on mute then. Yes, I've got a question from Mohammed here. He would like to ask, are the ground source heat pumps not suitable?
Okay. Currently, the leading one for the properties we're building is air source, but we're also looking at ground. What will happen going forward is that there will be an assessment to which takes place on which is the most suitable. At this point in time, the view has been that for the majority of our properties, air heat source is the most suitable, but there may be some situations where ground heat source may prove to be the most efficient, and in those instances, we will adopt that instead of air heat source. Okay, does that answer the question?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions in terms of specifications?
Questions? No.
Okay.
I think Pat had a hand up, Diane. Not sure if you could see.
Oh, sorry, it's Pat.
And Paul.
Just answer a question, please. There's been some notification on Birmingham Live today that there's going to be flats built in Chipperfield and on those. They're not flats, are they? They are going to be houses, and always have been houses since the beginning, yeah?
Yes, you are correct, Pat. It's a mistake.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pat. Paul, did you have your hand up?
No, sorry, it was an accident. I can't find the chat function though.
Okay. Shall I proceed? Oh, Magic. Okay.
Oh, thank you, Chair. No, I was just going to say there's a lot of comments in the Birmingham Mail which haven't actually been verified by either the City Council or ourselves. So there's no flats, it's all properties. I think the last count we had, because we've rejigged the numbers, just reconfirm how many number of properties there is going to be, because it was initially in 2016 we started off with 225. Then I think we went up to about 257. Now I think we've come down again.
Well,
So big residents
236
to know
went
how
up
many
to.
properties there will be.
Okay, it was 236 when we went to Cabinet last year in July. Yeah. At the moment, we're going through a process of what we call pre-application submissions on a lot of the sites we're looking at. And during that process, the planning officers tell us whether they think they'll fly, whether we think we can get the number of units which we originally were trying to achieve. Now, in some of those sites, they've basically said, we don't really think you should be building on those. So sites like Hillcross Walk have now been dropped. We originally had 2 5-bed houses programmed for that. We had a site near some of the bungalows just off Hyperion Road, and that has also been dropped. So at the moment, we are looking at in the region of about 220 houses. However, the design process is still continuing, especially in areas such as Berrendale, where we are currently seeking to try and get more units in to compensate for those we have currently lost. So, so sites like Berrendale, we were originally looking at something like 76 units. It may rise to maybe 78 or 80. Yeah, and on that particular scheme, there will be a significant number of apartments, and that's where we are looking at the next big change. On the Berrendale design, the one way we have mooted to date, and we've shown at all the other previous public events, we have been showing several houses, lots of houses, and 2 sets of apartment blocks, which have been pretty big buildings, basically. Now, what we've been asked to do, and this is partly in line with just changes in terms of the urban designer's view of what will work in that area, and secondly, because of our change to create more zero carbon friendly properties, we will now be splitting those 2 apartment blocks into 5. Yeah. We're considering whether 2 of the blocks will go to 4 stories rather than 3, but that is the only significant change on the Berrendale Road anticipated design. The house layouts are exactly as we have previously shown at previous public events. There will be no changes to the houses, just the apartment blocks at this point in time.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks for that. Just you, like we declared a climate emergency, and you've picked up on this. As
Yes.
City Council get to zero carbon, and with these properties, are these going to be the first built by the Birmingham Housing Municipal Trust, where we've tried to achieve that target of having zero carbon, better insulation, triple glazing, and the new air heat source? And same question that I asked Darren. What will we aspire to in terms of a rating on the EPC? Once an EPC is carried out on the property when finished, will we be able to get to the A or?
Okay, we're not the first. We have others already going in the city, but we are on the back of the first wave, yeah, of these. So in terms of the range of properties going through to planning next, we will be the first big wave of planning approvals coming through with the new specifications. Yeah. In terms of which specification we actually achieve, I don't know yet. Yeah. There is still a body of work that needs to be done in terms of being clear which level we're going to achieve, but it will not be A, because we're not talking passive houses in this instance. Yeah. So it will probably, I would expect it to be probably a B, worst case C, but unless we build a passive house, which was not the intention, then we will not be building to an A standard.
Now, final question. We're going to have the new air heat source coupled with triple glazing and obviously better insulation. How much do you think on average residents would save in terms of heating bills in these properties?
That is a very tricky situation at this point in time because of what's going on with energy prices generally and how things are being generated. Yeah, because unfortunately, some of the power stations are still using gas to produce the electricity, which will have a knock-on effect. So at the moment, that's not a question I can answer.
Okay, fair enough.
Ron, I wanted to ask you a question. The apartment blocks, they're going to be 4-storey, did you say?
If we're looking at potentially built 2 of the apartment blocks at Berendale, we're looking at the feasibility of making those 4 stories. If they go to 4 stories, they will have lifts.
Yeah, I was going to ask whether they have lifts.
I mean, one of the reasons why we generally stop at 3 stories is because if we go that 1 story higher, it has to have a lift.
Okay. I'm thinking about delivering leaflets.
Okay.
Right. Any other questions about the regeneration sites, the housing?
Okay.
I see a hand up, but I'm not sure whose hand it is. I've got Paul Wright, and I can't see everybody on the screen. Paul, would you like to ask your question, and then I'll try to determine who the other hand belongs to.
Hi, I think it's Karen. I think it's
Karen Priestley.
Hi, Ron.
Hey, Paul.
Just a clarification question. I heard someone say that there's going to be no flats built, but then I hear there's going to be apartments built. I don't quite understand the difference between the 2 things.
Well, what Councillor Mood was basically saying is that on the Bailey and Stonycroft, yeah, there will be no apartments built. Basically, those are purely houses, yeah. Mm. But on the stuff that is currently at planning stage, we are planning to build some apartments, yeah. So on sites like Berendale, there's a split, yeah. So there's about 20 odd low-rise houses, but then there's a significant number of apartments. And again, on some of the other larger sites, we have 1 apartment block with maybe 6 apartments in it, but then the rest of the sites are going to be low-rise houses. So generally, when we look at a site, we determine how the site best operates in terms of the mix of houses. Yeah, so we do a balance between housing need and what works best given the actual makeup and condition of the site. So in some of the sites, it is just better to have some element of flatted accommodation, and it has the benefit of upping the number of accommodations we can actually produce.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Paul. I'll move over to Karen Priestley.
Thank you. Hi, Ron. Hi, Diane.
Hi,
quick question from me. Is there any news on when these council houses and apartments are built? They're going to be offered to anybody on the Bromford first before it goes out to the wider area, or if not, why not, please?
Okay. I was expecting this question because it gets asked every single time. Now, your ward members have been pretty vocal on your behalf on this one, because we were all aware that there is a simmering discontent on the estate when people living in apartment blocks who are seeing new houses being built and are basically saying, surely we should be getting these first. Yeah. However, yeah, the council's policy is that in order for that to happen, you'd have to have a local letting policy, and local letting policies are only supported if there is clearance taking place on your estate. Now, at the time when clearance was taking place on your estate, there was no build going on. So all the people who were being rehoused on there were being offered places such as the last scheme I built on Perry Common. The last two phases I did, most of the houses we actually built on there were let to people coming from Bromford, effectively. Yeah. So now at the moment we're in a situation where we are being told that because there is no clearance taking place at this point in time, we are not going to be allowed to offer the new houses to existing customers on Bromford first. They will go to homeless people, well, people on the homeless waiting list, and to people with high priority need. So what we normally say to anybody living in the area who is living in an overcrowded house, etc., is that they should make sure that they maximise their points. They talk to their housing officer in order to do that, and then when the properties become available, they bid for them. And that's the best advice I can give you at this point in time, because as I've said, you're ward members, and I've even had this discussion with some of the cabinet members who have a great deal of sympathy with the position, but that's not the current council policy.
Right.
Okay, Karen.
Okay. Thank you.
I think I've got another hand. Is it Nasheen? So I can't see the people on.
Yes,
Yes.
it's the Sheen, councillor.
Thank you, Bev. Nasheen?
Hi, Dan. Hi, Ron.
Hi.
So just a quick question. So in the initial proposals, I think around 2016, read that there would be around 57 properties, correct me if I'm wrong, built for private sale to use the profits to build more social housing.
That's changing.
Has that changed?
No,
and why has that changed?
Okay, go on.
Shed some light on that, please, and why that might have changed.
Okay. There's two reasons why that's changed. One is increases in the cost of building, and that's been exacerbated by our adoption of the zero carbon approach. These houses will be a lot more expensive than the previous ones. Yeah, and we have a policy in the City Council whereby we do not build properties which we will then sell at a loss. And at this point in time, the market view is that if we build these properties to this standard, yeah, and then try to sell them, we will not recoup the money we are spending. That is the first point I'd make. The second one is that because there is still an increasing demand within this city, yeah, we are coming under greater pressure to basically ensure that whatever we build, where possible, we offer them for affordable housing first. And that's the current position we're at. We are currently stating that all the properties we are currently aiming to build on Bromford will be council rent.
Thank you, Ron. I've got a question from Mohammed Kahir. He wants to know if there'll be a vetting process for tenants moving into the houses.
Okay, my understanding is that we don't vet as such. Yeah, there is a requirement that you are not in arrears. Yeah, if you're coming from an existing property into one of the new ones, but I don't think there's a vetting system as I think you'd describe it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the only other element which I think is probably worth adding at this point in time is with regards to the general infrastructure. So obviously, as part of whatever we build, we try to increase the infrastructure around them. So one of the features which is going in is what we call a hydro break. Most of the new roads we create. So in the case of Bailey and Stoney, we are putting in 2 new hydro breaks, which are basically big cylindrical chambers underneath the highway, which will catch surface water. So if we have a torrential downpour, yeah, the idea is that surface water will be caught in the hydro break, yeah, and held there and slowly released into the drainage system, so you don't get a lot of surface flooding in the area. Yeah, so wherever we are building new roads, we will be putting in hydro breaks as part of the infrastructure improvements in the area. Yeah. The other things we are aiming to do is obviously, as we've said before, to improve the provision of play facilities in the area. Now that's obviously been a bone of contention due to the fact that there has been delays, and that's not just delayed the housing programme, it's delayed the provision of the play facilities. But we still are aiming to produce a refurbished play area where we took out the under 12s, and as part of that, we will be doing repairs on those pieces of equipment which are looking a little bit tired, and even areas such as the skate park, etc. We will be doing some resurfacing work on there. The target is to try and get all of that completed by Easter next year. Where we are at this point in time, the funding's been identified, the report is in the system. It just needs a bit of tweaking, because I'm currently working on that with my colleagues at the moment. So we anticipate that we will have the approval reports completed by early next month, and hopefully next month we'll be in a position to appoint a contractor. Now, there will be a lead time in terms of the equipment, etc., but our target is to get them on site in late winter, early spring, with a view to completing the reprovision of those play facilities by Easter. We'll also then move on to the play facilities at Wallstone. I mean, as you're aware, that area is currently occupied by the Environment Agency, but once that's off, again, we'll be able to write the report, and we will be seeking approval to put a small under 12s play facilities in that area where Wallstone used to be, and to do some general improvements to do the grassed area surrounding that. Well, once that's done, then the next thing we'll be looking at is Comet Park. Yeah. Now that area is outside the floodplain, so it's not affected by any delays to the flood defense.
I've got a few hands going off at the moment, so can I just take these before we move on? Is that okay, Ron?
Yeah, by all means.
Yeah. But first of all, I had Majid, and I've got another hand up, but I can't see on the screen. I've got not all the everyone's on my screen, so I don't know if you could.
Sarah Faulkner.
Sarah Faulkner. Okay, so I'll take Majid, and then I'll take Sarah.
Yeah, I just wanted to rewind to the previous question that was posed around vetting tenants. What I do know is, and Ron, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is for the new build, a city council tenant has to be effectively one of the best tenants around. They must have no arrears on their account. They mustn't have been in trouble for any breaches of tenancy. So you get effectively the best of the best tenants that you can possibly find in the city, and they allocated the places for the new builds. Myself and the chair, and Ron will know this because we spent many hours with Ron over the last few years now arguing our case that locals should be provided with a priority system, whereby if you live in and around the Bromford and Hodge Hill, that you would be allocated a place over and above other tenants who are living outside, because it makes sense, because you have the same infrastructure, you've got the same schools, the same community, people that are around you in terms of family support networks. But unfortunately, city council policy isn't that, and it works both ways in the sense that I know when we had the rehousing of our residents then in Bailey and Stonecroft, a lot of them were prioritised for the scheme in Erdington, despite not living in Erdington. Lots of residents in Erdington were unhappy that lots of residents from Bromford ended up in Erdington. So it does work other ways, but I it's something that we have lobbied the cabinet, and I'm sure that's something that the new cabinet member would be looking at. In terms of the play facilities, obviously our hands have been tied slightly because of factors such as the Fatberg, the delays to the flood defences. But many years ago, when we first spoke with Ron around the regeneration aspect of the public open space in the Bromford, we managed to we had a really good conversation with Ron, and he was on side, and we procured, and again, Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, £600,000 for public open spaces to be spent on the refurbishment of the new play equipment for Bromford Drive Park, an under 12 play area in Wallstone, some improvements to Comet Park, including play facilities, and some improvements around the wildlife to have like a wildlife sort of connection to it. On top of that, and this is a question that's been posed numerous times by residents, is that with the Environment Agency, because of the disturbance caused and because of the fact that residents have lost a play area for a considerable amount of time, some of which actually was because of COVID and the national legislation, it was actually the Environment Agency. We've also secured, again, Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's £190,000. So that's £790,000 that we've secured for the public open spaces in the parks. And even like a site like Hillcross Walk, we've had a discussion around that to see what we can do with that going forward now that we're not permitted to build on that. And on top of that as well, we've also set aside some of the Section 106 money that we've got from the former Bromford in pub, which I think residents would know about. So you're looking at around about £900,000, Ron, that we're looking to invest around the Bromford. And again, Ron, this is a plea on behalf of residents. If you can find us some more money from somewhere else, then we'll be more than welcome to it. But these things do take time, and we are planning. We've got Jonathan Webster working on the plans for the play areas. We've ordered it out with the old Worston site, and we're looking at the play facility. The one thing that has, because of health and safety, I'm not sure if residents are aware, some of the play equipment that we took out at Bromford Drive Park, because of health and safety now changing over the years, we won't be able to put that back in, but that's part of the money that we're going to use to bring about better, improved facilities. And once all this is completed, I'm sure people from Chelmsley Wood will be coming to the Bromford to use our play facilities. Thank you, Ron.
Okay, well, the only clarification to make is with Comet Park, it'll be outdoor gym equipment rather than play equipment. Yeah, and I think the other element is the area up by Berrendale. Yeah, we're also looking to put another play area up there as well. Yeah. Now, some of this is linked with the progress of the adjacent housing sites. Yeah, so the work with regards to outdoor gym equipment, etc., by Comet Park is dependent on how fast it takes us to actually get Comet through planning and on site for construction, and the same thing counts for the works up by Berrendale. Yeah. However, the play area reinstatement and the one over at Warstone, those are being done in advance of the next wave of housing. Yeah. Those aren't dependent upon what happens over at Hexham Croft, i.e. the old Holbrook Tower site. That's not affecting the speed in which we'll be able to do the play area at Warstone. Okay, and yes, Councillor, it is approximately £900,000, and yes, we are always continuing looking to see whether we can secure any additional funding.
It's actually, I've just realised I forgot to mention the Section 106 money from the former Comet Park site. I think there's about 170,000. Once the 9th property is occupied, that we will be able to set that aside as well for the Bromford in terms of public open space. So you're looking at more than £1 million to be invested in play facilities in the Bromford, which I think any resident anywhere in the city will be quite envious of. Thank you, Ron.
Okay.
Thank you, Majid. Thank you, Ron. I've got Sarah Faulkner.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi.
Just going back a few steps, the play park, the under 12s, Bromford Drive. When did you say that would be open?
Easter.
What happened to autumn? That's what we were told last time, it would be open in autumn. How has it suddenly moved on another 6 months? How many more months does it have to keep moving on?
I'm aware that you're frustrated, Sarah, but
frustrated doesn't go far enough. We've been through COVID, we've been through lockdowns like everybody else. We weren't allowed to travel. We have got nowhere for our children to play. And all that keeps getting done is this keeps getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And we, as residents, are never told why. Fatberg's got nothing to do with it. Because that was on Chipperfield Road. It's got nothing to do with Bromford Drive whatsoever. So why have we now got to wait another 6 months? What is the hold up?
Okay. Well, what we have said, and I have said this to representatives, and I have said this to people such as Paul as well, yeah, that essentially we are in a situation where we have had delays with the flood defences, which has impacted on our ability to deliver some of our other housing related programmes. I mean, that's the basis of it. There are certain
housing related programmes.
Pardon?
On housing related programmes on the Bromford or elsewhere?
No, housing related programmes on the Bromford. Basically, there's a connection, a direct connection between the speed in which we can progress our housing and associated public open space developments, and there is a direct link to what happens with regards to the flood defences. Yeah, and given this year, we have had quite a lot of, let's just say, bad news in terms of the programming on that, and that has affected our ability to move things forward.
How is the housing linked to a park? There's no houses being built over there. How is that being linked to a park?
Funding. It is connected to funding, basically. You cannot do things unless you have the relevant funding, and there has also been issues.
Funding was already in place.
The funding is in place in relation to.
You know, you're saying that the equipment wasn't safe, which is fair enough. The equipment had to be removed because it wasn't safe. I don't think that's the residents' fault. Who's going to compensate us for this? Who's going to compensate our kids?
All I can say, Sarah, is the Environment Agency have always known that by playing around with the play areas, they were going to cause some degree of disruption. They didn't expect it to be anywhere near this level because they weren't expecting this level of delay. So some of the money which has been identified in order to re-provision the existing play areas is money being provided by the Environment Agency, which is £190,000, yeah, in anticipation of the disruption they have caused to this community, basically, and that is part of the funding package which is being put forward. But I can tell you now, one of the problems we've had is that the Environment Agency have had to go back and find more funding because they've encountered problems and encountered delays. Yeah, and
well, they need the funding because they've took so long to do it.
They don't deliberately go looking to.
Do you ever come down? Do you ever come down and have a look and see who's working over there?
Yes, I do.
And what do you see?
There are
half a dozen guys. That's it. Half a dozen guys. I'm sorry. I drive past 2-3 times a day, not just once in the blue moon when they know you're possibly coming down to have a look. Yeah. There isn't enough workforce over there, so funding's gone because it's took so long.
That's only part of it, and I can't.
No, that's the bulk of it.
No, that's part of it.
The only time them guys do anything over there is when the tarmackers are coming.
So, do you want to answer the question?
I've got Inky who wants to come in on this. So, she's she's from the Environment Agency.
She's part of the Environment Agency
on this because it's not.
No, I appreciate that, but I don't understand what the hold up is. I don't understand why we've got to wait another 6 months.
If you
I've got
she'll be able to throw some light onto this.
We just keep getting fobbed off these poor kids. You know what? You've got loads of kids running around that have got major problems because they have nothing to do.
Fortunate. Would you like to come in and see you could answer questions around the Environmental Agency perspective?
Just to let you know, I will have a presentation in a minute that will explain a little bit more, and then I can talk through that. And then, Sarah, if you've got any further questions, obviously I can answer that after that.
Over to his presentation. If we carry on, Karen, have you got a question that's relating to the regeneration?
Yeah, to the park again, actually. In the last holidays, some of the residents, along with some of the people that do all the volunteering around here, did pop up parks outside the hub. Is there any way you can give them some funding to be able to do that in the next holidays and the next holidays until next Easter? Because it's not fair that the residents that are getting this equipment for the youngsters to play on are having to fork out for it out of their pocket when a lot of them haven't got the money to be doing that. Is there any money available that you can give them?
Karen, they can't give to individual groups, it goes to the community, so therefore it goes through Birmingham City Council. Because it's impacting on the whole of the community, so it can't be given to individual groups. But there are other funding streams out there that are available that can be looked at.
Right. It's only because I thought it was a great idea what they did, and it went down really, really well. But it's just a shame,
But the Environmental Agency can't give money to individual groups. It needs to go to the council, and it needs to be put into a project for the whole of the community, but not to an individual group. But as I said, there are lots of funding streams out there which we can look at to get some funding for the pop-up park, which is a brilliant initiative.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, thank you. Majid, we want some money.
Everybody wants some money.
Yeah, we all.
We've got more than 75 million coming to the Bromford. We've got more than most people.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just seeing Paul. Okay, I think Paul's got his hand up. would you like to come in?
Apologies, I need to leave in 5 minutes. I'm going to raise this question now. I think, alluding to Sarah, frustration and the number of residents that also are deeply frustrated and angry. And I think I appreciate £800,000 of money being spent on on the public improvements, but you've just said £75 million. I'm not a mathematician. I did decent at my GCSEs, but that's 1% that's going to benefit the whole community. You've just said that the houses aren't going to go to local residents. I appreciate the reasons why, but it's deeply frustrating that in a neighbourhood like Druids Heath, where they've got clearance, I understand they've got clearance, but I know that a bylaw has been passed by local councillors for the houses to go to local people there. I think
policy.
Yeah. I just think £800,000 on paper sounds like a lot of money, but actually it's a pittance that's actually going to benefit the whole community. I don't mind new houses being built, and I appreciate there's going to be people in need across the city that will get the houses, and I appreciate that people in the blocks received houses in Erdington. But this, where we are now, is a situation where local residents are being told there's going to be regeneration, and I'm not sure what benefits the whole community is getting. And you put that alongside the delays that have happened, there is a deep sense of frustration. I appreciate all the hard work that's going on, and I appreciate that it's complicated, but I think the sense of anger and frustration of being let down and forgotten is growing. And yeah, I think we need to know answers now. We need hard deadlines, and we need to know that these things are definitely actually going to happen.
Hold on, Paul. With the greatest respect, we've always said from day one, we set the targets, yeah, and we will do our damnedest to hit them. But we operate in a wider environment. We couldn't have predicted things like COVID. We could not have predicted some of the problems the Environment Agency have encountered on their particular sites. Yeah. So all we can do then is adapt accordingly. Yeah. In previous circumstances, if it hadn't been for COVID, you know as well as I do that what would have been happening, we would have been meeting on a more regular basis, and you would have had more regular updates. But given the situation and the constraints that have been put on us due to this situation with COVID, we haven't had that luxury. Yeah. So all I've been able to do is when I'm out on site and I bump into people like yourself, or I knock on the door of the hub, I give you an update on what's going on. And that's the best we've been able to do until recently. Now things are beginning to free up. We can hopefully start to move back to the sort of dialogues we used to enjoy, where we can basically hold open days where we can display the plans and we can give people updates on what's going on. But at this point in time, the biggest single problem we have had has been the fact that we have had delays with the flood defences, and our communication ability has been slightly compromised by the COVID situation. Okay.
Okay, I've got Sarah, but do you want to wait until we go on to after Imke's presentation, because it's about, you're asking about the environmental agency aspect?
Yeah, sorry, I just hadn't put the hand down.
That's okay. All right, there's I don't see any more hands up at this point, so I'll let Ron continue with his presentation.
I think it's probably timely for Imke to basically come in at this point, and then we can pick up any other issues after Imke's presentation.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Thank you.
Chair, can I just point of clarification? The near £75 million that I referred to includes the cost of the flood defences, which is more than, I think we worked at around about 25 million once you include the city council match funding. Again, something that a lot of councils across the city have had to go at me saying, how come you managed to secure the funding in your ward and not in like places like Selly Oak and Spark Hill, which have had lots of flooding problems. On the back of the flood defences, that's the only reason now that people are able to develop properties, and we're able to develop new builds on the Bromford, because prior to that, the Environment Agency wouldn't give us wouldn't approve any planning applications for that. So everyone's property price increases with the flood defence. doesn't take a mathematician to work that one out, because once you remove the risk of a flood in your property, in your area, that increases, like decreases your insurance premiums because you're not paying the excessive flood risk. And as a property lawyer, I do environmental searches on a daily basis. I see this whenever I act for clients in the Bromford, that a flood risk is assessed on the ground through environmental agency report. There's also includes the money that we've set aside for the new properties, 237, all zero carbon mines. So you're going to get the top spec. And I appreciate that not all of them may be allocated to residents in the city, but we've got, like that, a lot of our residents have moved into other areas, prioritising the move into properties there. And also includes, obviously, the money for the play facilities and also the money for the cycle path, which is going to run at the back of the old Warstone Tower site, and people have access, unless I'm mistaken, right all the way through to the city centre. So, I accept the frustration. I'm frustrated more than anyone. As a politician and as a councillor, I would love to be standing next to a new play facility and taking a photograph, say, look, this is what we've achieved. But we are being delayed. Look, COVID-19, I know a lot of people keep saying, but COVID-19 has a major, devastating impact on everything what we do on a daily basis in our lives. So we need to appreciate that. We've had problems with the fatberg, which no one anticipated when myself, Imki, the chair, and Ron had a conversation about the flood defences. No one even thought of a fatberg, hampering the improvements around the connectivity, around the transportation. So that's been a major issue. Obviously, there's a shortage of building materials. I'm currently doing an extension to my property, and I've had all sorts of problems in getting hold of building materials. Whenever you go to any builder's merchant, it's the same excuse. We haven't got the materials. We've seen on the news about HGV. So there is issues, but I would love it. I would love it if we could open the park straight away. I would love it if we could, start all the generation. But look, please, if you look at the other regeneration that's happening, and I'm not sure, Ron, about residents in Druids Heath voting for a bylaw, because a bylaw has to go through national government before it comes through back to us. So I'm not aware of that. If you can just, before MK comes in, just give us a briefing around a bylaw in Druids Heath, because that's just
I'm not aware. Well, the last thing I heard is that there was discussions taking place in terms of a local lettings policy, and that was directly linked to the fact that there was clearance taking place out there.
And if that happens in Druids Heath, then that gives us more ammunition to argue the same for the residents of Bromford. Although it's slightly different because that's a clearance, but our clearance has already happened, hasn't it? These are new bills now. That's the only difference, I guess. But something we could look into, Chair. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Thanks, Bridget. Okay, thanks, Ron. I'll move over to Imki now, and she can update us on the flood defence scheme.
Right. Hello, everyone. So yeah, I'm Imki from the Environment Agency. I have got Claire Holly with me as well today, so she may help out with some of the questions we'll have. I will, however, first go through a bit of a presentation that hopefully answers some of your questions already. Some of it may be a bit duplicated from conversations that have already happened, because obviously I didn't know that we were going to have the conversations first. But yeah, so bear with me on that one. I'm just going to share my screen, which I always struggle with. Right. Am I now sharing my screen? Can people please confirm?
Yes, that's
okay. Whilst I'm sharing my screen, I can't see if any hands are up. So at the end of the presentation, I will be able to see it again. But in the meantime, Councillor Donaldson, if you don't mind letting me know if there's anything.
I'll let you know I'll type in the chat names as they go up, so we know the order that the questions come in.
Okay, then. So this is just the introduction page, and I've already introduced myself, so I'm moving on. So first of all, yes, we have had delays, and far more than we anticipated, and it's always good to remember the reason why we are working in your area. It is obviously a flood risk management scheme to reduce the flooding from the River Tame. It's actually reducing flooding to over 1,500 residents if flooding was to occur in the area, and I know it hasn't for quite a few years. Sorry, I just seen the chat pop up. Then it would have devastating effects. And as you can see, it's all in the dark blue areas are the areas that would be flooded, that we are reducing the risk of flooding to. And that's all Bromford. And that's what we are stopping. So I really, really appreciate the frustration to do with the delays. And I understand completely and utterly, especially with COVID, that the delays have had a massive impact on the local community because you weren't able to use your local park when you most needed to. But yeah, it's for a really good cause for the people of Bromford. It's over 4.5 kilometers of works. So what you see on that picture is pretty much the Bromford estate, but it's actually a bigger area. So on this page, you can see the whole of the scheme, other than the Wharton Norton bit, which is a bit further up still. And that kind of answers a little bit of Sarah's question about not seeing people doing things. Part of the reason is because we are also working on the other side of the river and on more towards the east and the west of Bromford. So there are a lot of people working on this scheme all of the time, but they are working on various different sections of this scheme, not just in one or two areas along the embankment. Most of the embankment is finished now, and we just have to do certain aspects of it. So whilst we're waiting for material, etc., to come for that, we would be working on other areas. You may see people walking around. I was one of those myself. I was walking around with a hard hat on Wednesday. Paul, I did try to walk into the hub, but I couldn't see anyone when I was there. Again, I'm walking around with a hard hat with a colleague, taking photos of walls. You'll be seeing them in a minute. It looks like we're not doing anything, but we are actually working. So at times, and besides people having lunches, etc., lunch breaks, etc., all in different times as well. So one group of people have their lunch at 11:30, the other one at 12, etc. It may look like it's like we're not busy, but I can reassure you we're not hanging around. We're not just waiting around. I just want to reassure you of that. But yeah, it's a long stretch of river that we are working on, and we'll be working on different sections at different times throughout. So these are the time scales. So the works at Wharton Norton is now complete. That was the sort of like the smallest bit of the scheme, to be fair. That was completed in April 2021. In early summer 2021, we reopened after a few months of them not being in use, the multi-use game area and the skate park. However, the under 12s play equipment, as we discussed already earlier in the meeting, wasn't able to open because the quality of the play equipment left there was not sufficient. So a new play area will be built by Birmingham City Council by Easter. In autumn 2021, we will have finished most of the construction activity near the residential area of Bromford. You will have seen probably people starting to lay concrete already of the cycle paths. We've started some of the seeding works, etc. The most frustrating bit to you will be probably when we will have completed most of the area and we still won't reopen the park. This is for two reasons. First of all, we have to complete the whole of the embankment section for us to be able to reopen the section. So therefore, there's one particular area near the recycling centre where we still have quite a lot of work to do, and work has to be finished before we can open the rest of the park up. Although we are in discussions at the moment with our contractors to see if it could be done any quicker than that for the rest of the park. But that is one of our constraints. The other one is that once we've seeded the area, the grass has to grow, because if we allow people on it, the grass won't grow and you'll have muddy embankments for years to come. So we will have a period where you won't see any activity on site, and there simply isn't anything happening on site. And that's the reason why, because we're letting the grass grow and we're waiting for other bits to finish off. It does mean, however, that in the meantime, you will have less disruption from us. You won't have the noise from us, and you won't have as much traffic coming in and out when we've already completed most of that work. Some bits of work may still have to be done once we've opened the park. So we're expecting that to be opened in spring 2022. We may, after that, still need to do little bits of landscaping, but we try to do that by cordoning off particular sections rather than the whole park. We have to do all of that in agreement with Birmingham City Council. It's their park, so therefore it's all based on conversations between us and Birmingham City Council about how we can best do that safely and with as little disruption as possible to the residents. The full scheme construction will not be completed until the end of 2023, so much later than we initially anticipated. Various different reasons. Some of them have already been mentioned around the building materials and around COVID restrictions. But we've had, it's an extremely difficult area to work in because of how populated it is, how many different services are going through it. So we've come up with quite a lot of surprises throughout the scheme, which has really impacted on the time scales that we're working on. And I just genuinely can't apologize enough, because I know how inconveniencing that is and how much that has an impact on local people's lives. Unfortunately, it's sort of like we have to think of the sort of like longer term gain of this, that no matter how difficult that is at this moment in time. I do appreciate that. So just to let you know what we've completed over recent months. So you've seen the coping stones and the work on wall 3. Wall 3 is the one at the start of Bromford Drive, and you've got a picture there to show that. We've started topsoiling along the embankment. That's now ready for seeding. We've finished a lot of the works near the skate park and the play areas to make sure we could reopen those in July. The construction of the access ramps from the Bromford Drive and Chillingham Road onto the cycle path. We've completed the works on the flood defence walls around the Severn Trent pumping station. Again, we've had a lot of issues there with Severn Trent having to do work in the area as well, which delayed some of our work. And but it's all part of that bigger parcel of complications related to the scheme. Most of the work at Wall 9, which is by Holiday Inn, so it's on the other side of the river. But there's one particular area, which is the main cause of our delay for the wider scheme, that we're still working on in this area for the next 12 to 15 months to make sure that the wall is stable there. We finished the work at Peckhorse Bridge in Wharton Orton, as already mentioned, and at Bromford Gate, which is apart from one section by the Peugeot area. Again, not necessarily in the Bromford estate itself, but it impacts on some of the work we do there. This wall is one that you probably won't have seen yet because it's very much in the working area. It's the one behind the community centre where the boxing club is now. And this photo shows some of the working we're doing on the cycle path. So you can see that part of that is already part tarmacked and then the other part isn't. So yeah, work that is coming up is the resurfacing of the remaining cycle paths areas, the finish of the topsoiling and the seeding, and some remaining works at Tameside Drive as well. just to let you know that one of the things that we have had a lot of concerns raised about is the roads being dirty and mud being on the roads. A road sweeper will continue to sweep the local roads whilst we are working in the area. That won't be stopped at any time soon. Also to make you aware that delivery lorries will continue using Chillingham Road and Wanderers Walk area for the deliveries. As has been over the last few months, that is depending on as and when we have work happening in that particular area. So it's not constant. It happens. It depends on when we have deliveries of particular things that we need to use, equipment. So yeah, it's on and off, but it's not going to be half as bad as it has been when we were doing the main construction, because we're mainly doing the finishing off work now. So the play facilities update, and just to let you know, again, a lot of this has been discussed just already. Yes, we did have to close some of the areas for the safety of our workforce and of the community. And we know that this has led to a lot of frustration. We reopened the multi-use game area and the skate park at the start of the summer holiday. That was a real push for us to make sure that happened. And we did that because of how concerned people were about the lack of play areas. We try our hardest. I'd just like to reassure you, we do try our hardest to be as little inconvenience to yourselves as possible. We handed the play area back to Birmingham City Council in July 2021, but as already discussed, they'll be moving and upgrading the under-12s play area, and you've had a lot of discussions with Birmingham City Council about that over the past few years, really. I suppose I remember consulting with us, with you guys as well, even in 2017-18 on these, yeah, so basically they will be moving them, and that's why that play area wasn't reopened along the multi-use game area and the skate park. You guys already know that, we discussed it earlier. And they're working really hard now to make sure that it's going to be available by the spring again, as Ron already mentioned. So yeah, the new and improved play area is something that we're contributing to quite a lot of funding to, because we're aware that we had to shut the old play area, but we're doing other things as well. So other improvements to the area includes the cycle paths, which hopefully will be a real asset to the community and will be able to link into the bigger national cycle network. We are still working on, and I don't know whether Paul is still in the meeting, because I know that he had to go earlier, but we're still working on doing some murals with the community. We've been liaising with the school. We finally found some roads into the school. And we've been liaising with artists as well. So we've got a few key artists that are interested in working with us. We like to work with both the Hub and the Boxing Club as well to work on the murals. One of them is on the small wall, which you can see at the top, which is the one at the top of Bromford Drive. I'm thinking of something like a welcome to Bromford type message there, but very much owned by the community, owned by the schools and the community groups. And then behind the community centre, as you can see, that wall, which is the other two pictures of the walls, it's massive. It's a really big wall where we can do some really nice art. So again, we've secured funding for that recently as well. So we'll be able to do quite a nice piece of work there that will be hopefully cherished by the community for a long time. And because we want to do it with the community, we know that will have messages on there that will reflect your views. Then the other thing that we're doing is wildflower planting. There's a picture there of the wildflowers off Bromford Drive. there will be other areas where there will be wildflowers as well. And again, we're hoping to work with the school to get the kids to do some more wildflower planting, to get some pride into their area as well. So those discussions are ongoing with the school. So that's the main thing. So I've now got to the question bit, but I will stop my presentation so that I can see people again.
Thank you, Imke. Thank you for the presentation. That was really informative. I've got Sarah, who's had a hand up. Yeah, who she'd like to ask a question. What
guarantee have we got that these dates are going to stay?
Unfortunately, we haven't got a guarantee. There's still a lot of issues we have to resolve. And these are the ones we are really aiming for, the dates that we're aiming for, but we can't give any guarantees at the moment, no matter how much we would want to.
So can you explain to me, apart from COVID, which seems to be the excuse everybody's using, but they don't seem to have had a problem down the bottom building the houses with COVID, why is COVID such an issue with the flood defence?
I did say it was one of the issues. I think some of the main issues that I believe we experience with the flood defence is one of them is the surfaces underground that weren't necessarily mapped. So ones that we found whilst we were working there. The things like the conflict with the Severn Trent water station work that they were doing there at the same time as us, which had to be done relatively suddenly, so we couldn't plan for that. Things that were happening with regards to some of the flood defences on other side of the river, where we had some instability with it. So there was a lot of things happening that were quite detailed, quite technical. That needed redesigning, that needed waiting for other people.
But surely you're so far in now, it's took that long now, what, 2.5 years? I don't know anymore, it seems like forever. Surely you know now where everything is, where everything's situated, where there's problems, where there isn't. So there should be a guarantee in place.
There's not a guarantee. We know a lot now, but there's still a lot of things to be done. There's still some how do you call it, like some permits to be had as a result of changes that have had to be made. There's a lot of bureaucracy behind the actual, it's not just designing and building, it's design and then.
So you can't sit there and say to us, yes, that park will be ready for April.
I can't guarantee that, no, but I know that we'll.
So if that park's not ready for April, what are people willing to do if it's not?
I don't know what exactly you mean with that question.
What are the kids going to get next spring and summer if that park isn't open in April? What do they get? Another year of being locked in the house?
I expect
we have no green space anywhere to walk, to take our kids, to ride our bikes, to do anything, because you have taken over it and there seems no urgency to get it completed. There is no urgency.
Everyone wants to see it completed as soon as possible.
I drive past there 2-3 times a day. There is no urgency. I know you clearly said you was there Wednesday. People will be walking around in their hats and all their safety gear, but you need to come past on a daily basis. They stand there on their phones. They stand there doing nothing. They're not standing there working. This is the frustrating thing. You don't see it from our side. I don't want to drop anybody in it. I'm not here to cause trouble, but you're saying people are doing the best, and what we see is totally different. I'm sorry. And I know Madge and Diane, they do the best they can. I'm a little bit disappointed in Madge tonight because he seems to have just backed you lot all the way, which is fine if that's what he wants to do. But somebody needs to come down unannounced and actually see what goes on, because not a lot. And that might be hard to hear, but not a lot.
Okay, Ron wanted to come in.
Yeah, Ron, can you come in on this, please?
Okay, just to take the hand off. Okay, there's been quite a few issues on this one. I hear what you're saying, Sarah, because we've also complained where we've been at and there's nothing apparently happening, and asked the question, why are we not seeing things happen? There are things which IMCA won't say because, to be honest, it's not good practice. Yeah, but we know that the Environment Agency have had to sack some of their subcontractors simply because they weren't doing the jobs they were supposed to be doing. Yeah, so as part of their response behind the scenes, although no one wants to drop anybody in it, the reality is where they have seen people not performing, they've sacked them and had to go out and get replacement crews to take their place. The other side of this, when Majid says things like the impact of the Fatberg did have an impact on the flood defence work.
I'm not discussing the Fatberg. That's irrelevant. That's not what I'm on about.
No, you actually said it's not relevant.
No, I said that to you about the Fatberg.
Yeah,
I never mentioned anything about Madge mentioning the Fatberg.
The Fatberg is actually relevant from the point of view that as part of, in order for them to do the work to clear the Fatberg, they had to create 2 new holding tanks, by the pumping station, which materially affected the work on the flood defences, basically. Yeah. So the actual Floodberg has materially affected the progress of the flood defences. So there are linkages. That is part of the problem. The other issue where you're saying things like, we should know where all the services are by now. When we locate things, we still have to rely on the approvals of people like Cadent, where the gas pipes are. I know that the Environment Agency have discovered some services. Yeah. They've put forward proposals on how they want to move forward to work around them, but they can't actually do it until Cadent comes back to them and basically says, we are happy with your proposals. We sign them off because it affects their infrastructure. And unfortunately, people like Cadent aren't as quick to come back as we'd all like.
No, I totally get all that, but the slideshow has just been shown. She's basically just said that most of the construction work is done. So what's the hold up?
Now, I hear the frustration here, yeah. But what we are looking at,
you don't hear the frustration. You don't live with it day in, day out.
But I do hear the frustration, yeah. And
no, it's anger you hear, not frustration.
Yes, I am fully aware of that. But there is the simple fact there are dependencies, unfortunately. Yeah. If the Environment Agency can't do their work, it has a knock-on effect on everybody else. Now, at this point in time, and we have said this, IMCA can't give you any assurances about when the play areas are going to be open. Now, what we're saying is at this point in time, on the information we currently have available, we believe that we can get this play area open by Easter. Yeah. Now, if we find that the equipment doesn't arrive because there's issues supplying the play equipment, then there will be slippage. But at this point in time, what we're being told is that on our best information, as long as we can get the contractor appointed by November, then we should be in a position to be on site. Yeah, early next year, we will review to completing this work by Easter. Yeah, and that's what your ward members have been, pushing to have done. Yeah, we've been running around behind the scenes trying to ensure that we can secure extra funding. Yeah, to help these things happen and remove any risk in terms of funding issues. But there is a limit to what we can control. But we're aware that we have made commitments and we're doing our damnedest to try and fulfil them.
Ron, can you update us in November, by the end of November, that the play equipment is on order and it's going to be available in time? Can you give us that? Well,
once we've got all the approvals in place and the contractor is actually appointed, we will let you know. Yeah, and if anything happens, we'll come back and tell you.
I don't understand why it's not on order already, though. If there could be an issue with it, why isn't it on order? We were told the park would be open in autumn, so why isn't it on order?
Okay, we had to wait until we know that we're going to be.
So when you told us 2 months ago, there was no chance it was going to be open. You just told us to shut us up.
No.
But you did. We were told clearly it would be open the end of autumn. If you haven't even ordered the equipment, how was that even going to be possible?
Now, Sarah, what was originally happening at that point in time, and it wasn't 2 months, it was slightly further than that. But essentially, what we basically said was that once we were aware that we had access to the site, we would be in a position to get the approvals basically and move things forward. We have not been in that position. I mean, for a start, there's been various issues that have arisen between what the Environment Agency have been able to do. Originally, they weren't anticipating that they'd need to take the Wallstone Tower site for a start. Yeah, because when we first started looking at the play facilities, we were looking at a scenario whereby we would be able to put play equipment on Wallstone, in advance of doing anything else, and therefore you'd have play equipment while the other one was out of play. We didn't know at that point in time that the Environment Agency's contractors would say, actually, we've looked at all this and now we need to take possession of that particular site, and therefore you can't do that. So we have to adapt according to what comes our way. Now, at this point in time, what we are telling you is that on the best information we currently have, we think we will be able to get this done by Easter. And I can't say more than that at this point in time.
Thanks. I'll ask Maddie to come in now, and then I'll go over to Jill. Jill, I haven't forgotten you, sorry, but we'll just finish talking about the play parks.
Yeah, thank you, Diane. I mean, if we just go back about 6, 7, 8 years ago, the main work that we've got, which has kick-started the regeneration, which wouldn't have been possible, is a flood defence. We've got £25 million allocated. And I'm not just here to take the sides of the Environment Agency or the housing officers. I'm here to be a realist in terms of what's actually gone on. If COVID hadn't happened, I'm sure we would be in a much better position than we are now. That's a fact. If the fatberg hadn't happened,
I disagree.
No, you've had an opportunity to speak, so you need to allow me to speak as well. If the fatberg hadn't happened, we would not be in the position that we were in, because however we look at it, it has caused us difficulties. It's been a challenge. If the service installations that the original historical records that had been produced to the Environment Agency and the City Council hadn't changed for whatever reason, we wouldn't be in this situation. Yes, there's been issues with subcontractors, which the Environment Agency is dealing with, but at the end of the day, they're giving the best. Ron himself and Imke are working their damage to try to make this work for us the quickest amount of time. They've given us a deadline of spring 2020. Yourselves as residents, you only see us in these type of meetings. You don't see what happens in the background, and you can ask Imke, you can ask Ron. There's hardly a day that goes by when me and Diane don't actually have words with both of them to see where we're at, and we get the updates. We try to, obviously COVID's made it a lot more difficult in terms of having face-to-face meetings. We try to give that to the public. Originally we were told autumn we would get the park back, and then we can start the work in terms of, sorry, not the old Wallstone Tower site. But things have changed. But I'll give an example. I've started an extension of my property. I spoke to the builders in February. They told me I would be ready by October, half term, which is Friday. I still haven't got the planning application approved yet, and it's been like 6 months because things change. It's difficult out there. But what we're trying to tell all of you, and we want to work with everyone, is that at the end of this, we're going to have a totally different Bromford than we had 2 years ago, and it's kick-started by the Environment Agency allocating the 25 million plus that we've had come into the area. And I'm more frustrated than anyone. I get it in the neck, not just of residents coming here on the Ward Forum, but imagine that Bromford has near enough 6,000 residents, and a lot of them speak to us, so we get it from everyone. We're doing that damage, and what I will take back from this meeting, Sarah, is if we don't make the timeline of spring 2022 to see what provision we as a city council can then make for the children of the Bromford, because what we don't want to see, like you, is to have another another school holiday, lengthy school holiday go, where our children haven't got anywhere to play. And it's not just about the play facilities. I agree with you. It's about walking in a park. It's really good for your mental well-being. Walking in the park, having a look at the wildflowers, etc. That's what we want. So what I will take back, and I'm sure the chair is in agreement, to see what contingency we can put in place as a city council to provide some form of play facilities, some sort of space for our children. Whether it means working with local schools, we'll have a look at everything as a contingency. Hopefully it won't come to that, and we'll have everything in place. But at the same time, what we've also promised tonight is, we've got this pot of money that we've had now, and some extra money coming through once Collingbourne Avenue properties are occupied. There's another 170,000 that will be released from that for public open space. We are actually working with officers to see if we can increase, as some form of compensation for the children, increase the play facilities for children, because we're actually taking money away from other parts of the ward to bring here to the Bromford, because the children of the Bromford have suffered more than anyone in the last 12, 18 months now. Remember, the first 6 months was because of COVID, and after that, yes, Environment Agency, yes, Birmingham City Council. We've had issues. So I'm just being realistic here in terms of what we can deliver. And what I don't want to do is give you a promise now of, say, like we've had this already. We promised autumn, all of us did, Environment Agency, ourselves as councillors, and then we don't want to say, oh, we're going to get this done by February when we don't get it done by February. We'd rather give you a realistic target, and within that target, I'm sure MK will tell you it's built in terms of contingencies. If something else was to go wrong in Environment Agency, they've got this extra sort of like timeline to be able to. What I said to MK this morning as well was that the target has to be, we don't want to see Easter holidays come next year and the children of our ward haven't got anywhere to play with around Bromford. And that's what we're going to strive to do. And working together, it's a lot easier to try to get to that goal than telling everyone, you're doing it wrong here, you're doing it wrong here. Because if it was up to Imki, I'm sure she would love to hand us the keys tomorrow to the park. And if it's up to Ron, he'll love to order the equipment tomorrow and then have it in place by within weeks. And if it's up to the chair, she's smiling, she would love to do the same. And I myself would love to do the same. I'm here to represent residents and try to do the best in order to improve lives. And at this moment in time, it's challenging to do that, but we are trying our utmost, and that's the assurance I can give you. I am trying my utmost, as is Diane, as is Imke, and as is Ron. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Majid. Thank you. I've got I've got Jill and Pat who'd like to come in, but I think this is around. Sorry, Jill wants me to ask a question on her behalf around the cycle route. Will there be sufficient lighting around the cycle route? And a question that I'd like to ask. The entrances to the cycle route, will they have chicanes to stop quad bikes entering, etc.?
I can answer the chicane ones. That's a definite yes. We'll be putting chicanes in. I'm not sure about the lighting. I'm just half looking at Ron now, who muted himself.
I'm not aware that there is going to be a system of lighting columns along there. So I'd have to check exactly what it's going to look like.
Okay, so we can get back to you on that one, Jill.
Yeah, good question though.
Okay, but definitely chicanes, because some residents have been asking, because there is an issue in the area with quad bikes, which will be raising another ward forum in the near future when we're going to have the police and the Police and Crime Commissioner in attendance. So that's one for them as well. I've got Pat McCartan, who's got her hand up. Pat, would you like to come in? Pat? No, not getting any. Pat, are you there?
Pat, you're on mute.
If there's any further questions, then I'm happy to answer them after the meeting as well.
I'll ask her and then get back to you on that. Right, any more?
Can you hear?
Yes. Okay, Pat, I thought we'd lost you.
Right, can I just say that on the chair of Hodge Hill Housing Liaison Board, and we work with the council, etc. And can I just say that because when we go to meetings at the city in the council house, we meet up with all the HLBs, 32 of them across the Birmingham area. We are always asked, and have been for the last 3 years, how are you getting the money and how are you getting the facilities in your area? I always answer them, that's down to our councillors and that's down to the work that we do. They are so very jealous of us. So I see an awful lot of people across the city, and I know we've got to look after our own, but there are a lot of areas that aren't being looked at, which we do help through the HLB across the city. But please, you know, if there was a lot of wards that want what we've got, we've just got to take it on board. It's been a horrible 18 months, but we've just got to thank God that we've got it, because a lot of the other wards, a lot of the constituencies haven't. So please just bear with the councillors, bear with the EA, bear with the council. We are getting things moving. I'd just like to say that. Thanks.
Thanks, Pat.
I would like to say that I've got some relatives who live in Wales, and that they face losing their home because of the sea encroaching on their land, and the sea is moving in, and within 20 years they will have no home. So, you know, flood defences are something that need to be taken seriously with global warming. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? I've got Mohammed Kahir who's raised the issue of lighting, so that needs to be factored in. If it's pointless doing all this work if it can't be used at night, so the lighting needs to be looked at seriously. So that's the chicanes, lights. Any other points that anyone would like to raise?
Can I just raise one more thing? So prior to COVID, we came out to communities, and Ron already mentioned a bit of this as well. Since then, I know a lot of people have started using Teams and FaceTime, etc., for communicating. I'm happy to do that. Obviously, I'm here at the forum, but I'm happy to go to any partnership meetings that may be held again, any community meetings that are held. I'm also happy to come face-to-face to community meetings again as well. I just have to make sure that they are in line with the Environment Agency still quite tight restrictions, but I am allowed to go out again. So, you know, if you want to meet me on site and talk with me about particular issues, I'm happy to do that again as well. So use me. Don't always think, okay, she's not communicating with us, so that's it. Feel free to pick up the phone to me. Feel free to send me an email. And I'm happy to arrange to meet up with residents and community members as well. So that's offers out there.
Thank you, Inky, and thank you for the presentation. And if anyone wants Inky's email address, feel free to get in touch with me, and I can give you Inky's contact details if you've got any concerns at all. Right, any other questions from residents or anyone here?
Councillor Majid's.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, Chair, we get a regular newsletter from the Environment Agency. Will that be hand delivered to all the properties around the Bromford, or are we going to expand it slightly further? Because we get lots of queries from people living on the Bromford Road as well and Bromford Close around what's happening with the flood defences. So if we could increase the number of properties, households it's delivered to, that would be brilliant.
Okay, I can liaise with you about where we can deliver it to. It has been a while since we've done a hand delivery door to door. That's been gosh, probably a year ago now, so there's probably one due again. There is a newsletter due out over the coming days, which I'll email to people, and I would like to say to people, please, share that with your neighbours. It's going to be by email, so put it on your local Facebook page, etc. It's got my contact details on there, so people can contact me direct as well. But yeah, I can liaise with you, councillor, about the area that we can cover this time for the door-to-door delivery as well. That's
we've got a newsletter that I think we're going to deliver in a few weeks anyway. We can sit with you tomorrow and just work out some wording. We can help with that, and we deliver it anyway. We have lots of really good volunteers that help us, and it gets to every single door. That could be announced to your newsletter as well. So help.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Imke. Thank you for attending this evening. It's been really informative. So I've got Ron, whose hand. Ron, would you like to come in?
I just need to add something in terms of the circulation of newsletters. Now, previously, what we've done is we've all gone out and basically put them through letterboxes ourselves, which keeps the cost down considerably. The last one we did with regards to the consultation around the hub, we were unable to do that again due to COVID. And we had to hire externals in, and that is where we are at the moment in terms of what we're being advised to do internally. But that costs us about £3,000 to do that. Which eats into the budgets we've got to spend on other things if we're doing that. So we are having to be very, very careful about how we do our circulation of information up until this point in time. Hopefully, it will get better in the next few weeks and months, and we'll be able to resort to the same methodologies we've been able to use in the past, which is simply people recruiting fellow officers to run around the estate, putting things through people's letterboxes and keeping our costs down.
Ron, we're happy to help with the delivering of newsletters.
Get the same offer, Ron.
So just get in touch with us and we'll help out.
We can just add some details onto one of our newsletters and we can get that delivered so we can cover both BCC and the Environment Agency. We've done that recently with the mobile housing recycling unit. Worked out really well. We delivered to 1,500 properties in the ward, so it worked out really, really well.
Really good turnout because of the letters going out, because not everybody is on social media, so a lot of people they still rely on the leaflets. I've got Annette Horner from Waits who has her hand up. Would you like to come in, Annette? Annette, you're on mute.
There we go, press the right button. Sorry about that, folks. Just to touch on your mail shop deliveries, I didn't know if you was aware there is an organisation that comes under the umbrella of Birmingham City Council, whereby you basically send them your newsletter with your list of addresses that you want that circulating to, and it actually works out to be less than half the price of an average stamp. Just wondered if anybody...
That's still expensive for us.
Look, I mean, from Waits' point of view, we do use that en masse, and it is an absolute godsend, a massive saving to the business.
Yeah, but we wouldn't have that amount in our budget. Literally.
Inka, I don't know if you'd managed to tie into that service, because it is a great asset to have. I can share details later on if you'd like.
Yeah, that would be useful. We currently use a service called Notify, which is a government service. However, that doesn't allow us to send anything with pictures out. We can just send letters out.
This company, they do all sorts, and it is part of the Birmingham group. So, single pages, 2 pages, brochures, whatever you want.
That'd be
very quick turnaround. Very, very quick. I can highly recommend them.
Thank you.
Send me the details, Annette, but I don't think we'll be able to, as councillors, we won't be able to afford it. But it might be useful for other things. Thank you, Annette. Pat, you've got your hand up. Is that an hand, or would you like to come in on something else?
No, I don't think you got my last call. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
what I was saying about, I don't think you heard me. If you did, please let me know about the city board, the HLBs. As you know, I'm the chair of Hodge Hill, but the people that have been on here tonight, and I can understand their frustrations, and I understand you and Majid are doing a brilliant job, but if those people were to come to City Board, where I had to go to, we've got 32 HLBs across the city. They say to us, how does Hodge Hill get so much? What are you doing that we're not doing? And Joan Goodwin, God bless her, before she had to resign, she was always in praise of Hodge Hill because of the things that are being done. So please, please, we are getting a lot done. We understand frustrations, we understand anger, but work with the EA, work with the councillors, work with Birmingham City Council. We are getting more done in this area than is being done in a lot of places across the city. So please, we've just got to bear with these horrible times, but I'm sure it's going to get much, much better.
Thank you, Pat. It will get a lot better. In a couple of years' time, we'll have an estate that to be proud of, and it'll be totally different.
Well, I know, because we have people that come, and even the new chair, he has come around this estate and seen what's being done. We understand the frustrations, we understand the dust, the mess and whatever, but things are being done. So we've just got to hang on to that and just give it another 12 months and we'll just see where we are then. But I just say thank you to all of you that are doing the work for us, especially on the Bromford. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
Right, we'll move on now. Is there any other questions or points that anybody would like to raise under any other business before we move on? No, I can't see any hands up. I see Pat's, but I think that's a historic hand. So I would just like to say thank you for everyone that's come along this evening, to all our presenters. You've been brilliant. I know it's been a tough time for all of us, but just another few months and we're nearly there. We'll have the play parks in place and everything will be much better. Thank you. Councillor Majid.
I just want to add about the mobile household recycling units. We're quite lucky. We've had two centres here in Bromford and Hodge Hill already. We had one on Shawsdale Road and one on Collingbourne Avenue car park. We've listed another 14 locations, 8 in the Bromford part of the ward and 8 in the Hodge Hill part of the ward. But if there are any other locations that residents have, or, well, we've probably already put them in, but if there are any particular locations, they need to be quite large in the sense that you need to have 2 trucks there to have, and also access for vehicles. And on that, and also just like to thank Jill, especially Jill is a legend in Bromford and Hodge. In fact, the city now, everyone's asking me, Jill, she's always going around and helping improve the area more so than anybody else that I know. So thank you very much, Jill, and to your colleagues, the Hodge Hill residents who have been out there cleaning on a regular basis. That's made other residents across the city envious of the work that volunteers are carrying out in the estate. So keep it up and thank you very much.
Jill, yeah, you've put in the chat about the transport. There will be, as Majid was saying, 14 more lorries coming down, and there'll be some in your area. So, you know, everybody will get the opportunity to take their rubbish to one of the recycling units. And yeah, thank you for all the work you do. You're brilliant. Got Mike Hinton as well, who's raised. Mike, would you like to come in?
Hello, Councillor Donaldson. I'd just like to follow up on what people have been saying about Bromford. I've worked now with the Environment Agency on a number of projects, and I I think this is no different to any other. You know, there are technical details that need to be addressed. But just to say now, parks have been involved, not only in the play area, but also the finish that will take place to all the works. Things like where the wildflowers will go, the gradients, the soil levels, and even down to the chicanes that will be going in. We've been asked about these and what, you know, the standards that we expect to be seen. And I have to say that a lot of construction sites always appear not to have a lot going on, but if you go behind the scenes, they are very, very busy. And I've certainly walked the length and breadth of Bromford with the construction people, and I've been quite impressed with what I've seen. And I thought, to be quite honest, I know there's some slippage on it, but I thought it was progressing really well. And I say, we're at a stage now where we're involved, so we can have some input. So it just shows that things are almost coming to an end in some respects. In terms of other areas of Hodge Hill, we've also got coming along some big improvements at Ward End, certainly around by the Dolphin Centre. We've got a big landscaping job there. And also we've just installed a grass court volleyball pitch, which has just been completed. So that will be ready for, hopefully, for playing on next year. The other thing is down at Stetchford Lane, where they did the road improvements down there, and the contractors used the site compound. All that has now been completed and refurbished. So things there are almost back to normal now, if there's such a thing as normal.
Mike, I've seen where the fairground is. It looks
That's
like
it.
we've got our own Stonehenge now. What is that?
What, the metal container?
No, there's lots of well, rocks. That's
Oh,
big rocks.
the rocks. Yeah, well, they denote the perimeter of where the fairground can go.
Okay, okay.
So it's kind of a boundary line, but quite informal.
I thought it looked like a bit like Stonehenge.
It does a bit, yeah. Yeah. So, but you know, things are moving along, and I'm quite pleased with the progress. In terms of all my other areas, it's probably the busiest at the moment. So, yeah. Okay.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come in before we wind the meeting up? No. Okay. Well, thank you for all the residents that have attended this evening and for raising all your concerns. But I hope this has helped to put your minds at rest. I know there's still a few months to go, but we'll be at Christmas soon, and then Easter will be a few months down the line. And thank you for Ron and Imke for coming along, and for Darren, who's already left. Thank you for all your presentations. It's been really helpful, and it gives us a better picture of what's happening in the Bromford. Thank you for everyone who's attended, and we look forward to seeing you at the next meeting, which will be about crime, and we will have the PCSOs, hopefully the Sergeant, and the West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner, Simon Foster, who will be attending to talk about his role and answer any questions that you may have. Okay, well, thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your evening until the next time. Bye-bye. So authority to change.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night, Diane.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay.